Hello and welcome to the Social Recruiting Show. I'm Katrina Collier. I'm a social recruiting trainer and speaker. I'm, of course, joined by my gorgeous co-host, Audra Knight, who's an employer branding genius. And today we have two more employer branding geniuses with us today. It's exciting. Shannon Smedstad, who I thankfully got her name out right. Yay! And Emily Fritz from, now I can't say your company name. I've tried.
Exaqueo.
Yeah. Exaqueo. Okay, so I can't do that. Welcome to the show. And of course, we're talking about stop trying to attract everyone to your roles.
Awesome. Thank you, ladies. Can we start with a little bit of background for anyone that might not know you and what you're doing in the space, maybe how you got into recruitment, and then what you're doing today at Exaqueo? All right, let's say, Shannon, will you start, please?
Sure. So recruitment found me back in the late 90s. I graduated from college with a liberal arts degree and went to a recruiting firm, and they ended up hiring me. And then I started as an agency recruiter in the Washington, D.C. area. I did agency recruiting for a number of years, went to a nonprofit, did recruiting there as well as HR and comp and bens. Then went to one of the largest insurance companies in the States and did recruitment for over a decade. Then management consulting, started an employer brand, and I've been at Exaqueo as an engagement director for almost 2 years.
Wow, that's impressive.
I've been in the recruiter shoes. I have been in it since the time when we faxed resumes to people, if anybody can remember that.
What's a fax? I'm kidding. I so know. I can't believe it's 2 years already. It feels like a minute ago you were announcing your change of role. Wow.
It's
extraordinary.
Awesome. Emily, how about you?
Sure. So I'm Emily Fritz, and I got my start with recruitment as an intern at a defense contractor. My dad was a business development manager there and said, get an internship after my freshman year of college. And I started working in TA, and I never left. I kept coming back every internship, started working part-time by my senior year. And when I graduated, got a role working in university recruiting and relationship, doing all the internship programs and campus recruiting. Then I went over to corporate and started the social recruiting program with our recruitment marketing team, and got to build up our employer brand and work with some really great folks. One who was Kathleen. And Kathleen actually was the one who reached out to me to pull me into this role after I had left that defense contractor and went to an event startup to do social media marketing for B2B. Did some experience there, but Kathleen, lured me back to recruitment and employer branding and pulled me into Exaqueo. Yeah, but it was the best decision. I love working here. I've been here for a year, and it's been awesome.
What's so special about it that makes it awesome?
It's our team, honestly.
Our team.
Yeah. Our team's so inspiring.
So how many people on the Exaqueo team? So we have 7 on our core group of strategists and consultants. And then we've got bench consultants that we pull in if we're doing things around the world. And then we've got a creative team out of the UK. So we've got global presence, but the core team all virtual. We all work from home here in the States.
So how do you, because this came up last week's show, didn't it, Audra? With the remote working teams, which I think works fine, but, how do you then have that team feeling? How you make sure that you're in constant conversation or whatever it is that makes it that way?
Sure. Do you want to start?
Sure. We've got some really great technology that we use. We have our virtual office called exaqueo. And exaqueo is like going in, it's better than an actual office, but it's like a virtual map, and we all have our own rooms, and there's conference rooms, and you're like a little avatar. It's like a bouncy ball. Shannon changes her color all of the time. You can create status updates, and when you pop into each other's office, you can actually knock, and it makes a knocking noise, so you don't just intrude. And and then we can video chat and just talk through exaqueo, which is really how we communicate. But we also have a lot of virtual technology that we use. And then whenever we can, we get to see each other in person.
Yeah, I actually just saw Emily yesterday. We were in Boston together visiting a client and doing some workforce research. But I've been working from home for 12 years. And I think the number one thing is you have to be intentional. If you stay in your bubble, in your office, and you're not reaching out, you're going to feel lonely. You're not going to feel connected. So you absolutely have to make an effort, be intentional, make sure that you're reaching out and connecting with everyone.
Yeah. Someone's asked for the link to the platform.
And everyone wants to know what this is. It's so cool sounding. Is it exaqueo?
Yeah, can one of you type it in the little box on the side? Because I completely missed it. Yeah, it does sound like chocolate cocoa. I'm sure that's not what you're saying.
It's the cocoa.
It's the cocoa. SOCOCO.com.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry. We just went, thanks, Emily. That's awesome.
I think social media helps too. Working remote, like Facebook groups and chatting with your friends on social, that makes a difference for me too.
Yeah.
It's like our Instagram too.
Yeah.
Really.
We had a really interesting chat about this the other night as well, where it comes from, where does your energy come from? So whether it comes from within or you need it from other people. And I think a lot of people that are working remotely, and they might call it an introvert from that, but my energy comes from within. I self-generate. So therefore I can really happily work on my own, still tapping in, still connecting like you guys are doing. It was a really unexpected conversation. So
yeah, I'm sure it also helps that you guys love what you're doing. Because imagine if you hated your job, you work from home, you'd be like, I'll just take a nap today. I mean,
I'm just going to go back onto the sofa with the dogs, which of course you guys can't see. That was in the green room.
No, I think we're all very self-motivated. We get energy from each other. We get energy from the work that we're doing, the impact that we're having with clients. And it's just a great group of women too. Like we just all get stuff done, and we get stuff done together. We work really well together. So
And there's a lot of trust.
Intentionally women?
No, we had a guy on our team, but unfortunately he left.
He's in Australia.
Yeah.
I was going to say the weather's better, but then you guys probably have better weather than we have here. So yeah, it was just interesting.
Companies with, so maybe their employment brand, their EVP. What kind of stuff do you help companies with?
Shannon, you want to take this one?
I can start, and then if you want to fill in. So we are end-to-end. We're an employer brand experience firm. So we do everything from workforce research. We believe that in order to build an authentic employer brand, it doesn't get built in the boardroom. It bubbles up from your people. So we will do in-person unbiased focus groups. We've been doing quite a bit of travel and research and focus groups recently for clients. And then we use that foundation of workforce insight to then build the employer brand foundation. Who are you? What do you stand for? What do your employees value most? How can you then take that and go to market? So we help build that employer brand strategy. And then we can move into the execution pieces. So through our creative team, we can build career sites, do employer brand launch videos, as well as digital ads, recruitment ads, and things that are more traditional. Yeah. So full end-to-end, helping companies understand who they are so that they can not only attract talent, but also retain. So we believe that employer brand, it's not just the TA component. It really is that more holistic overall employment experience. Anything else that you would?
No, I think that was super comprehensive.
Yeah.
Damn it.
It was a great question that I want to discuss too. I always hear people saying employment brand and recruitment marketing in the same, like they mean the same thing. And I've done it before in the past too. But I started to get my own theories about what the difference is, but I would love to hear what you guys think. So I don't know which one of you feels the strongest and wants to jump in. I can start us off. So I think I definitely agree with you. It's like you hear it constantly. It was one of the things I noticed a lot at eBrandCon too when I was there, is that people were kind of interchanging these words back and forth, when really I do think there's a pretty stark difference between employer brand and recruitment marketing. Recruitment marketing, what we believe is really just the execution and focus more on that attraction piece, while employer brand is really the full employment life cycle, from attracting that candidate to retaining that candidate to even when they leave, keeping that alumni, as an ambassador and an advocate for your brand.
It's nice to hear it put that way.
Yeah.
I've only ever heard it, the initial pull. And of course, obviously, if it's not really like that when you land there, you're going to leave. And then,
Exactly. I think of employer brand as sort of that window. So if you picture yourself at work in the office, what's going on inside? And then there's this whole outside world. And employer brand, we become that window between those two worlds. We help people understand what it's like to work there, but we also have to bring that experience to life for our employees.
So, out of interest, having had another interesting conversation this week, why does it matter? So this woman in particular is dealing with dinosaurs. So really, who gives a shit? Why does it matter? Anyway,
I think that,
I know the answer. I'm just asking you.
No, great question.
Yeah, I would say, the biggest thing and the easiest way to especially convince dinosaurs is just follow the dollars. You don't have an employer brand in place. Your recruitment marketing isn't going to be portraying that authentic experience. You're going to spend a lot of money attracting the wrong type of people to come in your door, to train them, for them to realize, ooh, this isn't what I signed up for. And then leave. So that's the biggest thing I can, if you have somebody who doesn't understand or just thinks it's easy, just follow the dollars. You can easily pool that and attract, align those kind of the money with that cost of hire. And I think that's a big piece of it.
I think also another thing is just looking at how many hits you have on your review sites or your different profiles. Just look at those numbers. Like, you can't ignore these other places because thousands or millions of people are seeing these other places or our career site. So just looking at numbers as well is definitely money.
But I also think there's this whole part, poor Audra's heard it 100 times, but you guys haven't. But that whole, I'm very much on the recruiter level, as you guys know, teaching the sourcing. But does a recruiter look worthy of someone's time? Does a company look worthy of someone's time? If we spend all this time doing our holiday research online, why wouldn't we do our company research online? It's just like, so the dinosaurs, it's like, really?
We like to think about well, and so think about the buying process. So you mentioned holiday shopping. So I think you ladies probably know, prior to exaqueo, I was with CEB, Corporate Executive Board. It's now part of Gartner. And there's great research that comes out from the Sales and Marketing Leadership Council from CEB that says 57% of the buying experience happens before somebody ever talks to a sales representative. So we like to think about and put on our consumer marketing hats as well when we're thinking about employer brand. More than half, and if 57% of consumers are shopping online, they're getting information before you've ever talked. We can almost swap consumer for candidate and sales rep for recruiter. So before our recruiters are ever talking to someone, people are shopping online. They're going for information.
And why wouldn't they? It's right there, isn't it?
Exactly.
It's like, what's this?
And they're trusting that information more. We know that they're likely to trust their friends, those review sites, even more than what you're putting out in your recruitment marketing materials or on your careers website. So that information, that goes all back to that experience and the whole life cycle, because when those employees are leaving your door, you want them to say good things about you. You don't want them to be like, don't sign up for this. This is what it's like. And trying to, really portray that authentic experience. So sorry, my Alexa just turned on for some reason.
Oh, how exciting. This is why there will never be robots in this house. Bad enough the dogs interrupt without the robots interrupting.
Katrina has a good stat I'd love to read. I haven't heard this one, but it's interesting. So your Glassdoor and your number of applicants almost directly align. If you have 2 or below, you see less than 50% less applies. Did I read that right? If you have 2,
50% less applies.
Oh, sorry. 2 is the rating for Glassdoor. You see 50% less applies. Good point. But how much do you guys believe that you can ask for reviews and really change your Glassdoor review, or do you kind of believe it is what it is? What's your take on that? Your score?
Oh, on Glassdoor. So, Glassdoor is interesting. And also just review sites in general. Sure.
Yeah, there are tons of them.
I think, of course, it's influencing. I mean, if you're a recruiter and your job is to put butts in seats and you're talking to candidates, oftentimes the candidates are going to say, I've seen this on Glassdoor, and that recruiter needs to be armed with information to be able to talk through it. Right. And I think we see the review sites a little bit more in the States and in some European countries, and it also depends on job industry category. We've been doing research recently for quite a bit in manufacturing and hourly. They're not necessarily using the review sites as much as word of mouth. So I think you just have to understand your candidates. Indeed's review sites.
Wouldn't they be more inclined to look at the reviews on Indeed though?
So it just depends on who you're talking to. You've got to ask people.
Yeah, I just thought in manufacturing it might be. I don't know why.
They're applying on it. They're going to search for jobs, but they may not necessarily be looking at the review sites. It's about asking your people, understanding what channels they use to consume information. Are they going to Glassdoor? They might be. I've worked in an organization where absolutely the people that we were talking to were going to Glassdoor. Our reviews were mixed. And so our role was to then really help our recruiters be able to talk about that. And so if somebody has a question, be really open and honest and help the person understand.
Yeah. Well, that's also if you get to talk to them, because what if your reviews are so bad they see it and they don't even talk to you?
Absolutely. And, you know, that's the whole attracting and repelling. So if they're influenced by those numbers and they choose not to apply, I mean, that's part of what our employer brands too. They're designed to persuade as well as dissuade. Right.
So Emily, the bit that I don't know that we necessarily answered, do you encourage your clients to actually get some better reviews there?
I think we encourage our clients to read the reviews and address the reviews that are, you know, false or untrue, or try to help people understand kind of what the situation is when they can, and really trying to arm their recruiters to be prepared to answer those questions when people bring those up in the interview, that there are these bad reviews on Glassdoor. Have your recruiters prepared with not a statement, but some talking points that help them kind of guide that conversation or address the realities. Exactly. Maybe it is a really hard place to work. Yes, you're going to be forced overtime, perhaps. You know, that's the kind of stuff that you have to set really early on so that people know what they're walking into and they're signing up for the right thing. So those realities are just as important, you know, as those attractors.
Yeah, I think sometimes it's good that people say negative things on Glassdoor if they're true. Yeah. You know what you're getting. And it also helps the company, right?
It can, if the company will read them,
As long as the things that are negative, you know, if there's information on Glassdoor that is not accurate, right? Or there's something that's berating an individual person, if there's something that's truly egregious, then you've got to be able to address that. But if it's something that is purely a brand reality, like this is what it's like to work here, you have to be honest with who you are, what your company stands for, what it's like to work there.
But also, if you've got 30 reviews and there's a common thread all the way through, you have an opportunity as a company to make a change, because no one's going to write that on their employee feedback form because we all think that they're all tracked. So we never think they're anonymous. So we don't do it. So Lee Candiotti, hi Lee, welcome back. How would you define exactly what brand is? That's a brilliant question. Who's taking that one up?
Shannon, you want to start us off?
Sure. And we can also send a link out too. So we've got this really great, it's how to define EVP culture and employer brand, like 2-year-old. So we can certainly send that out too. If anybody's interested, I'll post it on my Twitter handle after the show. So the employer brand, it's how we message, market, communicate, and bring our employment experience to life for externally to our candidates and internally for our people. And that's how we would define it. Yeah, it's that experience and how you market and how you communicate it.
That's quite.
I like it. Cool. Sometimes people only focus on external, so I think that's great that you think about it.
It's absolutely, it straddles both. Absolutely straddles both.
So nice to hear that. It's refreshing. Ashley's got a really cool question here. Hello, Ashley. I don't know if you've been on before. I'm loving the Ashley Bush with an exclamation mark. That's cool. Do you recommend responding to, in brackets, truthful but very negative Glassdoor reviews, or is it best to leave them be? There's a constant debate as to whether to respond because people argue that it adds fuel to the fire. So what do you professionals think?
I really think it's important to take it by a case-by-case basis. It's very hard to say blanketly across, yes, always respond, or no, never respond. Every person is different. Every post is different. So I think it's really important for you to read the review and make a decision based on what that's posting. You know, put yourself in that candidate's shoes, or that employee's shoes. You know, what is the post about? If it's something, you know, false or, like Shannon said, really inflammatory towards a person, I probably would just address that it was either false or, you know, asking to take it offline, things like that. But sometimes people just want to complain and they need a place to do it. And so you just don't need to respond to that, because that can add that fuel to the fire. So my recommendation is always take it on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah. I think one other thing too is have the conversation with other people within your organization. So employer brand doesn't happen in a silo. It's not just talent acquisition, managing the recruitment marketing posts, right? Employer brand is about employees as well as candidates. And oftentimes, if you're a consumer product or you're also selling something, it could be your customers are seeing these reviews as well. So we would encourage individuals to have a conversation with your public relations, your head of internal communications, your marketing team. You know, what is marketing doing on Yelp? What is marketing doing on Google reviews? So understanding your company's overall philosophy and process, and then aligning your strategy and your process the way that the company is advising as well. Or, you know, oftentimes legal is involved in those conversations too. So I don't think it's a blanket, do it or don't do it. It's a bigger conversation.
For sure. And someone just commented too about, you know, addressing those negative realities of your culture. You know, I think it's really important to make sure you address those. And if someone is posting something about, you know, a negative part, that is what it's like to work there. I mean, it's important to set those expectations from the beginning and make sure that you're clear about the experience so that people know what they're getting themselves into and they can be prepared to self-select out if that's not the experience they're looking for.
Exactly.
One of the things I used to do in a former role when I was in-house is I reviewed the Glassdoor reviews. I went through them on a regular cadence. And if there was something where I could specifically see, okay, it's this particular location, it's this particular function, those reviews got forwarded to those locations and said, you know, I'm flagging this as an FYI because it could be that somebody internally needed to be educated. It could be that there was something that we actually could fix. So some of those reviews, you know, if you're able to get the review to somebody who can take an action, you know, that's always being more proactive too, I think is important. So even if you're not visibly responding, but internally you're acting, I think that that's always a good approach as well.
So we have a question here. So Katrina, Kevin, thank you very much. Can you share an example client who went from attracting everyone to being specific and the data they used to decide who they would attract? A lot of people say this perpetuates bias, but I'd love to hear how you worked around that.
Interesting.
Good question. Do you want me to read it again?
Yeah, and I don't see it over here. It's a big. I'm trying to see if I can find it
on the bottom.
Yeah.
So can you share an example client, I guess, of a client who went from attracting everyone to being specific and the data they used to decide who they would attract? A lot of people say this perpetuates bias. I'd love to hear how you worked around that.
Okay.
KK hits with the tough.
Sure. So in terms of, we can't share specific examples of our clients. So most of our clients have confidentiality agreements with us, right? So what we do is we help them build that authentic employer brand, really understanding who they are and what they stand for, the types of behaviors that are successful, and the type of people that are going to thrive within their organizations. One of the kind of behind the scenes things that we will do is help build out candidate personas so that we can understand who it is from, think about a buyer persona too, from the consumer marketing side. So what is inside the hearts and minds? What is that person, that persona of who we're trying to attract? What's important to them? What motivates them? What are the types of behaviors that are successful in those roles? And so once we understand our personas, we can then market to that person. It's also about being more consultative. So helping somebody to understand what the role is, how it fits into the bigger picture of the organization, the impact that they're going to have. It's more than just a laundry list of requirements for the job, but really what is the outcome? What are the behaviors? How is that person going to achieve success? So we've done quite a bit of job description reviews, writing audits, A/B testing, working with our clients to ensure that they are not just talking about, you know, the bullet points of like, here's all of the things in the job description, and here is that list of requirements, but really talking more holistically about the person, the whole person, as well as the whole opportunity. So job descriptions is a big part. Personas is a big part of something that we'll do for a client if they choose that particular part of the work. Research and understanding who they really are, building that authentic foundation. We've done that for many, many clients.
Yeah.
So I know it wasn't super specific, Katrina.
Hopefully that answers her question.
Hopefully that answers part of the question. Em, is there anything else that you would add?
Yeah, I think it's just about thinking about quality over quantity. You know, there's this stat about Google having 3 million applications a year, and I just don't know why anybody would want to sift through that many, let alone like be able to share or respond to all of those people. So all you're doing is creating a negative candidate experience for those folks who never get the response or who get the thank you, we're not interested 6 months later. So I think that then goes back to, you know, the business line too of like what's the cost of pulling in the wrong people, and what's the cost of advertising to the wrong people or marketing yourself in a way that isn't authentic. You can't all be Google, and you don't all want to be Google. So don't try to be Google, try to be you. Because the more authentic you can be about your experience, the realities, the good, the bad, the ugly, you're going to find the right people who want to be in that environment, who are going to make the most of it, because you, at the end of the day, are giving them either a purpose or a paycheck. You're putting food on their table. And depending on what it is, there can be a lot of things that people are finding attractive about those realities. And those are the people you want to bring through your doors. So the more you understand who that person is, I think the better off you are going to be at recruiting the right person and keeping that person there.
Yeah, because we are playing with people's lives, aren't we?
Oh, absolutely.
They may think that they're coming into something and then they find they're not, and then have to leave and be worried about their mortgage and all of that. So it's nice to hear you looking at both sides. But haven't you guys got something about authenticity on your T-shirts?
We do. We're wearing matching T-shirts.
I love it.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's
so they say if you're authentic, you have no competition.
Yeah, exactly.
See that on the exaqueo website as well.
Yeah, I love that. I want one of those with a V-neck, please. I can't do high round neck.
I'll put in a request.
Yeah. No, who was actually Audra was getting swag. I can't remember who from. And I keep going, oh, stop with the boys' T-shirt.
Yeah, like. But I like the fact there's no bad culture. There's just what's good for you versus what's good for me. You know, like someone might hate
different.
Our company's changing all the time, but I think it's awesome. Where they might want stability, where I'm like, that's boring.
Exactly.
You know,
and some people want the really, you know, long hours and the hard work, and not hard work, but you know, that pressured environment. Some people love that and thrive in it.
Oh, we were at a focus group yesterday where people were like, overtime, give it to me. I absolutely want it.
It's more money in my pocket.
More money in my pocket.
It's my happy wife. That's my happy husband.
Yeah.
Or I don't have maybe for some cases.
Where others will say, or other people, other segments within the same company will say, you know what, I don't want that. What's really more important to me is the work-life balance, or I need a shorter commute. Some companies will say, you know, pay, or some people will say pay is their top job search criteria. That's the most important thing to them. Other people will say, no, it's meaningful work. And so that's one of the things that we help our clients discover and uncover as well, like what really is most important to your people. And then how are they ranking and rating you on that? And then you can start to prioritize, where do we want to build out our talent strategy? Where do we need to focus? Where are our strengths? And we need to continue to foster those particular strengths. And what are the things that we really need to be focusing on improving?
That's really cool. Liz asked another question. Does your company, whose name I still can't get out, focus in any specific industry verticals, or do you work with all business category companies?
We work with everybody. I think probably maybe the one exception might be government, just because of some of the procurement process, but I'm not even sure if that's 100% true.
That's cool.
We might work with government if they approached us.
Yeah.
So, right?
Oh, sorry, what was that?
Is it global or more US?
Our clients are global.
Global.
So I have a luxury hospitality company that is not, that they're everywhere except for the US. Work with pharma. We've got a nonprofit. We've got a major healthcare retailer, a couple retailers, manufacturing. So we are across multiple verticals, tech company.
Financial companies.
Yeah, I bet they love reading their reviews. So Maurice made a point here. Isn't the goal to get 3 to 5 highly qualified candidates? I guess that's a little bit more at the generic level. She's talking about what you guys are talking about. Maybe
3 to 5 highly qualified candidates
for roles. for example?
I mean, it depends. If you're a high volume hourly employer and you need to fill a class of 50 customer service reps, I want a lot more qualified candidates than that to fill my class. So I think it just depends on role and employer.
I want to jump into video because I feel like that's the one content where I see the most generic rubbish. Like for us, we're trying to really create really targeted videos. Like we've got one that's like sales in the UK office. We've got like R&D in Dublin, and we're trying to keep everything super, super targeted, and it's working great for us. But don't you see that too with video? It's like your employer brand video, and it's like, just, we're the best and all our people are awesome. And it's like, what are you acting?
Oh, we're hiring. Join our team.
Yeah.
Really? We're all like, great. Really? We're great. Really?
With video and telling them like video can also be very targeted and doesn't, again, need to attract everyone.
Yeah, I love video.
Mm-hmm. And it doesn't have to be overproduced, and it doesn't have to be super expensive. You can, I think we heard some great examples at a BrandCon about interns that were doing their video and on their iPhones, and they were phenomenal. They're really engaging. They're short. They're informative, and they're coming from a source that's trusted. So I think video can be a really great tool, and it doesn't have to be very expensive.
Yeah. I love video. I've probably worked on 25 to 30 videos or so over the course of my career. When I was at Geico, we had an amazing in-house video team that I was able to partner with and do sort of day in the life of specific jobs and just show the work environment, talk to the people, get their stories. But as long as we're
like trendy, like that must have been really groundbreaking at the time.
Oh, it was fantastic. We used to do these monthly Geico minutes that would talk about careers and things that were happening that month. And we used them for our college recruiting. So we would take that one video and it would become a social post. It would be embedded into the career site. Of course, it would be on our YouTube channel. It'd be burned onto a DVD that we would take to campus and plug into a DVD player.
What is that?
Back in the early 2000s. And we would get as much mileage from those videos as we possibly could. And it was fantastic. It's fantastic.
I feel like a little bit like the kids of today are going to miss out because they just haven't had that experience of the first beta tape and the VHS and the DVD and oh my God, you just didn't just take the laptop with you. No, burned on just, I mean, I miss all that stuff.
Yeah. The Wi-Fi was unpredictable.
No, I tell you what,
the dial-up, waiting for that noise to connect to the internet.
Really random comment. I was at the tip earlier because it's late in the day here in London, and I had to throw away some small appliance stuff. And as I threw it in, there's this printer, like this big mama thing from the 80s in there, and I'm just going, oh my God, all this stuff that's just gone that we just sort of evolved through. It was kind of cute. KK has a question here, of course. God, she's throwing the curly questions at us today.
That's
I'm
great.
curious how you scale video between price and time invested. It seems like it would be tough.
It depends if you're spending a lot. Like you said, you don't necessarily have to. It depends on the company.
You don't have to. We do videos for our clients. So certainly working with a third party is an option. Some organizations will invest in having an in-house team with a communications team. There might be somebody that does it on the side as their side hustle that you could talk to. When I was at one of my organizations, we had a person that did photography as their side hustle. So that was somebody that we could kind of lean on internally as well. So I think there's lots of options actually when it comes to doing video. You could go shoestring, or you could blow a huge amount of budget on a video.
Yeah.
I
like the ones on the phone. So, and actually, didn't you guys mention Instagram earlier?
Oh,
yeah. I think that's the most underrated in that. Just, the corporate hashtag, getting everybody to just share their video and repost it and stuff like that.
Yeah, user-generated content is the best, I feel like, for just really showcasing and trusting your employees to be able to handle social media in a professional way that's authentic to the experience there. And really empowering them to use that hashtag, informing them how you want them to use it, putting up some guardrails so that they know where the line is, and not to cross it. But that I think is important. That shows an environment that is more credible than what you might post on your corporate channel. And I think at the end of the day, it goes back to those review sites and just trusting who you know. And when you see somebody that looks like you, or you see somebody who's, not the vice president or the CEO sharing the message, you're probably a lot more likely to listen.
Absolutely. I had to tell a client that earlier in the year. It was quite embarrassing because the CEO of the company shouldn't be doing their videos. It was like, oh dear. And the people weren't like that at all. So it was kind of like, no, that has to go. I felt really awful, but it was like, sorry?
Well, I didn't hear Audra. What was that?
There was a time, I feel like, when that worked a while back, when it was important and what people wanted to see the CEO because they never got to see him. And there was a time, but now I don't think it's.
I think they'll take the CEO if he's really genuine. He's on Instagram and Twitter and being real. But not polished PR bullshit.
Right. It's got to be the message and how it's delivered. For sure.
Definitely.
And there's more and more apps now. I know 4 or 5 that will help you with just video on your phone as well. Tools that make it affordable. It's so much easier to be affordable now.
And I mean, the new iPhones and the new Samsungs, like all these Google Pixels, I mean, the cameras on those phones are basically, a high professional camera anyway. So you can really do a lot with just a phone.
And I run Disrupt HR London. And the other night, one of the guys had a camera on the side. So I've got the professional doing the usual. And so he set one up on the side. So he's going to take that and edit it and have his own video. And I'm like, cheeky monkey. But it was like so easy for him just to chuck it up on the side. And obviously I streamed it out on Facebook Live as well. So it's really good. Lee's got another curly question. My goodness.
Great.
One of these days I'm going to outsource being host to Lee. Like, he's got the best questions. So what kinds of branding social media campaigns are you doing to support diversity recruitment? Boom. That is a great question, right?
Yeah. So a lot of the work that we do is strategy. So we're not actually doing campaign execution for our clients. So the work that we're doing, what we're known for is workforce research and insight. That's our bread and butter. That's our core. And then from that, building the employer brand strategy and the foundation. We build out messaging maps, messaging guides. We do training. So that's a little outside of the scope of our work is in terms of launching campaigns. Now, if a client comes to us with a specific need, women in leadership, diversity in tech hiring, we will help the client build their execution or their campaign based on the research and strategy work that we would do for them.
Got you. Okay, which answers Lee's second part of the question. Yeah, because it comes into the strategy, doesn't it?
Yeah, it can be recommendations based off of that research, or the client may ask us a question as to why aren't women going into these leadership roles? And so that might be something that we focus in on during our research to kind of hear and understand and put forward some recommendations on how they can start to change that or make an impact or educate and put that into the strategy.
Yeah.
Good point. Don't just start with the campaign, but figure out what's the problem. I like
Right. Yeah. You need to answer the question of why, and don't assume you know it just because you used to be in that role. We find that a lot of leaders, especially in some of these industries that have homegrown folks that started at the bottom and rose to the top, they feel like they still know what the experience was like. Well, it's been 30 years. The experience has definitely changed. So taking the time to, put yourself back in those shoes, and not just assume that you know the answer to the question just because you've identified the problem.
That's a good reason to have outsource the research a bit, I think, because it's easy when you're internal to be like, I already know.
It's unbiased. We had a woman in one of our focus groups this week who Emily and I both afterwards were like, we thought she was going to cry. We've had some of our consultants be in focus groups where people have, because they become so passionate, and no one's ever asked them to share their opinion. Their voice has never been heard before. And now their company is investing in getting that honest and open feedback. And then we create a really safe environment for them to have these conversations. Everything's confidential. We don't attribute anything back to one person. And then we go to our main points of contact that are often very senior in an organization. And we're giving them that insight and that window into what their people think and what their people are feeling. So it's extremely, extremely powerful. We've had people, it was just amazing this week. We had 3 focus groups this week. I did 11 the past 2 weeks with another client. And they've said because we're not HR for their companies, they're talking to us, right?
Yeah. It's one of the first questions we usually get. Are you with corporate? And it's like, no, we are outside. We're outsiders. It's a safe space, circle of trust. It makes a big difference. And people open up because I think you said it earlier. One of you that, those engagement surveys, we put some of our feedback on there, but we're not being 100% honest. We know who we are.
Yeah, we're following the IP. They're stalking us. And Collier is negative again.
So you're only getting a small sample of the truth when you do those. And even if you try to hold your internal focus groups with your HR, again, there's that line you don't want to cross because you're concerned. And especially if you have negative feedback, you really have to create that safe space where they feel like they have your trust and that confidentiality. And then it's like Shane said, the floodgates just open. People want to share and want to talk about what they're going through because they're so passionate about their job. And a lot of times they just want to keep working there, but they want it to be a better experience.
Exactly.
And
we'll have some clients that ask us to cut the, oh, sorry, Katrina.
No,
I just wanted to go back to the diversity question.
Yeah, no, just quick thing that it's just so sad that HR still has so far to go. Like there's still so much fear. They just need to get out of their offices and go and start talking to people. Like genuine talking, authentic conversation. Sorry, Shannon, I interrupted you. You're the guest.
Yeah, no.
But I do it every time.
Sometimes we'll have clients that really want to understand from a diversity standpoint generations in the workplace. So they'll ask us to cut the data based on age of their employees. They'll ask us based on gender as well. Yeah. We can get, depending on the client, depending on the scope of work, we'll be able to cut the data for them from a racial standpoint if they want. Tenure with the company tends to be pretty insightful. Your newest employees versus your 5-year, 10 to 15 year, 25 plus year employees. So being able to cut the data. So diversity takes on a lot of different demographics. It takes a different shape depending on how the client wants to see the workforce research cut.
Because there's probably an age diversity thing now as well, isn't there?
Definitely.
Like you think about some of these tech firms only want people under 30 with 20 years experience, of course, but I thought of it that way. There are too many boom moments going off in this show. It's amazing. You guys are awesome.
This is awesome.
ROI a bit. Everyone's it's like, how do I measure employment brand? Can you measure it? Is it just brand awareness? Is it applies and hires? And do you help clients with that or no? Because it's not, I guess that's that kind of after they do the campaigns.
Well, we do recommend, go ahead.
No. You go ahead.
No, go and fight it out. Arm wrestle.
We do put forth recommendations for measurement. With our research, we're able to, get a really good sense of the organization, their competitive field. And so we can have a good sense of what they're measuring and why and what they should measure. So we do put forth recommendations for a measurement strategy or measurement dashboards, things like that for our clients to help them measure the right metrics, because that's just as important. Again, going back to the applications, if you're really focused on the number of applications that you're getting, that might not be a great metric if you're having a hard time retaining those employees because they're not the right ones coming through the door. So making sure we put forward recommendations on what to measure and maybe not, and also what not to measure or why you shouldn't measure that, or maybe showing them kind of why this metric is better than that metric so that they can go forward to their leadership team and explain, hey, this isn't what we want to be looking at and this is why, and here's what we should be focused on.
Yeah. And something, Audra, that you mentioned, campaigns. So my husband is marketing director for a global logistics company, and he and I have very interesting conversations about brand and marketing, him from the B2B side and then us from the B2E or the beta candidate side. And one of the things that he has taught me is we measure brand over time, and we measure campaigns more short term. So so let's say we're opening a new office in Philadelphia and we need to hire 50 people to fill sales roles. Well, we're going to build a campaign to market and recruit and attract people. And hopefully that recruitment marketing is then grounded in our employer brand of knowing who we are, how we're going to talk about our company, how we're going to talk about our employment experience. So we build that campaign because we know we need those people in 60 days or 90 days. We need butts and seats, right? We can measure that campaign that's shorter. But in terms of our overall organization's employer brand, that measurement happens more over time. So if we launch an employer, we uncover and we redefine our employer brand and it's aligned strategically to the business and our overall talent strategies, we're not going to know in 60 days if we've moved the needle. But over time, 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, we can now start to look at those key indicators to say, what is our reputation in the market? How are our employees perceiving us? Are we moving the needle? Are we creating and are we delivering on the promise that we've made to people of what it's like to work here? That doesn't happen with a campaign. That is truly, we believe that's something that you're more going to look at over time.
Absolutely. And Emily, I think you made a fantastic point. Great point about applications. If you're looking at, okay, we did this campaign, we got this many applications. What if they're all completely rubbish and they're completely the wrong person? That's a great point, not to figure out what's to measure.
Yeah, it definitely makes a big difference if you have the right measurements from the beginning. And it's not just, again, going back and assuming the metrics that you need. It's taking the time to understand kind of what are your goals? What are you trying to achieve? And also, what's the biggest problem? And that's why that employer brand foundation is so critical, because understanding who you are is just as important as understanding who you want to come in the door and who's going to be most successful when in your environment. And so having that foundation and then going out and recruiting and finding those right people is going to be all the difference.
Yeah. We actually use Clinch. And so now our recruitment campaigns are bringing back successful candidates. So I've just chosen like the workflow of, do they make it to the hiring manager or further? So I can see, if they're successful, then to me, that's valuable more than just how many applications that may or may not be any good. And not just hiring. But of all great, tons of amazing candidates, applications, and maybe only, you get one hire and then you say, well, that was, all right, I only got one hire. But if you can say successful applications, I feel like that's really valuable.
Yeah, or even retention numbers. If you put out a campaign and you get 400 hires, but then 6 months later, you only have 100 of those 400, that's something that you're going to need to address. Like, that's a different metric. So who cares that you hired 400 a year later, you only got 50, or, there's not all of them here. That's something else that you want to be measuring and paying attention to.
And and
asking the questions why.
Yes.
Sorry, just saying turn down offers as well. I don't think there's enough interviewing in that space, like going back and saying, why did you turn down the offer? It needs to be more in that as well. So same thing you're saying, Emily.
Yeah, that's something that we do with our clients too, is a declination survey. So going out, like looking at your ATS within the past 6 months or 12 months, all of the individuals that have declined an offer, well, let's ask them. Let's ask them why, and giving them a short survey, nothing that's going to take them 30 minutes or 40 minutes to complete, but some really pointed questions and say, tell us about your candidate experience. What was it that attracted you? What was it that influenced decisions? And getting that sort of data is really important.
and maybe even understanding where they went, because I think that's a big thing. A lot of companies or industries assume competitors based on their consumer product.
Yeah.
In reality, that might not be who your talent competitors are.
Right.
And so knowing who actually is taking your talent away is just as important as knowing who your consumer competitors are. And I think a lot of people forget that those two are actually very different.
Yeah. And also sometimes the hiring managers don't want to hear that it's their behavior as well. Maybe they took too long to give an offer. They were dreadful at interviewing. They didn't, sell the role enough. They didn't, it's valuable feedback.
The candidate experience, I think, is the ultimate litmus test, really, and that not only falls on the hiring manager. I mean, it can go to the recruiter. It can be the onboarding that they had, the training when they came in the door. There's so many touch points throughout that employment life cycle, that goes beyond candidate experience to employee experience, and taking the time to understand where are people getting dissatisfied? Where do you lose that engagement? If someone came in really excited and then, a couple months later, you're noticing they're dragging their feet, like understanding what's happening in your organization. And I think that's really important to know just as much. And that candidate experience can have a huge impact on your reputation, going back to that employer branding.
Yeah, it goes full cycle now, doesn't it?
Mr.
Gledhill, late to party, but when you're hiring volume with very low level skill requirements that might not care about culture, what do you do?
So there's an assumption there that they don't care about culture.
Yeah. I'll slap in later for you.
I think there's some confusion. So we had some focus groups recently with hourly employees that don't necessarily know our lingo, right? They don't speak that same lexicon of calling themselves talent and referring to their workplace culture. But once you start to describe and you're having that conversation about this is what we mean, then it's like, oh yeah, it's the floodgates open. You can have that conversation.
Yeah, I think it's a real assumption. Oh, sorry, Shannon.
No.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it's a real assumption to assume that they don't care about your culture. That might just be how you're defining culture. But when you think about culture as, the workplace environment, your unspoken behaviors and norms, how you get stuff done, people do care about that stuff. And they attribute benefits to part of their culture. They attribute how you work with one another, respecting your employees, the leadership influence and their management. All of that plays into culture and the work experience. I do think
you're right.
They might not call it that.
Yeah, they probably just don't call it culture. But, what's it feel like when I'm at work every day? Do I like my colleagues?
Exactly.
Do I like the environment? Like, they're just not using the marketing buzzwords to be
right. About like drivers where they're all on their own. They might not care as much about what's going on in the office or salespeople, but they care about something. It's just a matter of figuring out what they care about, right?
Right. Exactly. And then asking them how they'd rate the company and finding out what's important, how they're doing, and also finding out what's not important. That's something that we do in our research. That's really cool. So we ask
really beanbags
people,
aren't important.
Beanbag tables are not important to everyone. No. And so that's really interesting too. So you might have maybe your organization is going to be laser focused on wellness programs or corporate social responsibility, or making sure you've got a softball team and a volleyball team and a kickball team because, we want to have sports and things for people to do after work. But finding out from your employees what they really care about and then aligning your programs and your policies to that can be very, very eye-opening.
Yeah. And it's important to know because a lot of times when you have those genuine efforts at the leadership level, like, hey, we should update the break room and put in a nice couch and do all these things. But then you find out that your employees actually don't ever use the break room. They actually want to step outside and get some fresh air. Then all that money that you spent to them looks, like a waste. And why wouldn't they ask for my opinion? It makes them feel less valued and that you're more disconnected to them, even though the intentions might have been there from the beginning. It creates more of a disconnect, and it can honestly have more of a negative impact if you're doing things.
You can put all this money into it, and I could absolutely see what you're saying. That's
It all just comes back to communication, doesn't it? Talk to your people. It's complicated.
Being human. Just be human, right?
I'm all about being human.
Absolutely.
Okay, Jessica has this question. Let's see if I can get this out because this is long. I've read it 3 times.
It's a long one.
Do companies track company culture as sourcing targets? For example, if your company is big on work hard, play hard, and company X culture is work hard, play hard, then wouldn't company X be among the first places you target for talent? Wouldn't people from that company fit better? In theory, anyway.
So I think it's definitely coming
more
out
gritty
from a sourcing standpoint. And I think Em talked a little bit about understanding who your talent competitors are.
Yeah.
So if you know that one of your talent competitors has the culture that's and people are thriving in a culture, and that culture seems or you perceive it as similar to yours, and you want to be able to attract similar people. I mean, I think it's an assumption worth exploring.
Mm-hmm. But I also think it's important to kind of just play devil's advocate a little bit and not assume that they are, because a lot of times people aren't going to jump ship for a similar experience just to have the same kind of challenge that they might be facing in a work hard, play hard environment. Just using that example. So they might know, the whole devil I know versus the devil I don't know. I might just choose to stay here because I'm comfortable. I've been here. I know how to navigate this kind of culture. And yes, you might be offering me something similar, but what else can you offer me? And then that has to come into understanding who that audience is and what it's going to take to pull someone out of that comfort zone of what they know to go somewhere that they don't know. Even if you say that culture is similar, it might not be culture that they care about, or that might not be enough to pull them out.
Oh, it goes back to treating people as humans.
They might not be authentic. Maybe they don't actually work hard, play hard, and they just say that on their career site.
And you just don't know.
Sit around all day. I love that idea. We're running out of time, so quickly before I forget, we're not here next week, are we, Audra? I know, I'm at SOSCON. I don't know what your lame excuse is.
I'm in Austin.
You're in Austin. That's right. You're in Austin. I think I'm actually sitting on Santorini, Greek island, with several of the students nights on Friday.
Lucky you.
And I thought about tuning in for a show, and then went, I don't think so. However, we are back the following week with Balash, and we're talking about the BS of diversity recruiting. It should be really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could be quite an inflammatory show, so it could be quite a lot of fun. So I'm looking forward to that. So I just wanted to get that in before we got to the hour, because there's too many good questions. Oh, Julie is going to see you in Austin.
Awesome, Julie. And Katrina Kibben is actually the co-host of that one, right? Because I think I'm a.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, you're still not back 2 weeks off. Wow, I don't know about this. Did you guys have anything you wanted to say that you missed out on saying as we run into our final minutes? Did we cover all your bullet points? These guys were super organized. We're not used to that. You guys go on.
I would just think I want to kind of revisit that whole employer brand and recruitment marketing piece. And it's not the same. Don't use the words interchangeably. Really understand the difference between the two. And I think that can make all of the difference in the success of your recruitment marketing once you know your employer brand. And the two, while they go hand in hand, they are very different. And I think the more that we can educate our industry on that, the more successful we all are going to be.
Well, you've definitely educated me on that. So thank you. I didn't really get it.
Definitely you had with the 2-year-old explanation. I want to read that. That's awesome.
Oh yeah, where's the 2-year-old?
I'll definitely share that out.
You'll be able to pop the link on the comments box even after the show shut. So
that's fancy.
Oh, it's very fancy. We love it. And I'll write actually no, technically KK will write a blog that'll look like mine, which will go out on mine. And again, it'll also still have all the links. So it's really cool.
Where do people find you on Twitter, LinkedIn? What's best?
I'm social_M.
Nice.
And I'm on Twitter and LinkedIn. So happy to connect there. Yeah.
You're just at Shannon Smedstad as well, aren't you? It's really easy. You use your name, don't you?
Yes.
It's nice having an unusual name for that.
What was that, Audra?
It's nice having an unusual name because it's easier to find us.
Emily, not on the other hand.
Yeah, then there's the bad side of all those images that just you don't want out there that end up out there. But yeah, other than that. Anyway, thank you both so much. Awesome show. I've learned so much. So I've really enjoyed it. And we shall see everyone else in a fortnight. Bye, guys.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye, everybody.
You too. Bye.
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 Bye.